First thing on our agenda is, let's say we have call to order. Can we have roll call?
Yes. Director Jim Brown.
Here.
Director Mike Carter.
Here.
Director Greta Connie.
Here.
She's here, right?
I am.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Director Scott Ignacio.
Here.
Director Tess Alban Smith.
Here.
Director John Haschek.
Here.
Tasha Osran.
Here.
And Chair Dan Jurdy.
Here.
Sorry.
Yeah, here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to convene as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, then we're going to recess and immediately reconvene as the Policy Advisory Committee. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar, which is adoption of resolution making continued findings for remote meetings and also approval of the August 15th minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent?
Before we take a motion, staff would actually like to pull item 4 from the consent and consider that by itself before we move on with the rest.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, so pulling adoption of resolution M 2022-17 and considering that separately, and Janet has got some proposed changes to that resolution.
I move that we accept the consent calendar minus the item number, what is it, 4, item number 4.
I thought we were doing item 4 before we adopted the consent.
Yeah, I think that technically, per the rules of AB 361, we have to consider that first before we do the rest.
Okay, so why don't we hear from Janet on the resolution?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've been carefully considering what findings can be made at this point. I know a lot of other agencies are going back to meeting in hybrid or in person. And so I would like to propose, having talked extensively among staff and looking at the current legislation, that we delete paragraph 4, and that was the Mendocino County Health Officer's recommendation back in March, strongly recommending online public meetings. And the day the packet went out, the health officer issued another recommendation, and it was about masking, but apparently this earlier statement about online public meetings is not found on the website anymore. Am I right, Jody? That we can't find that statement, so we're not sure we ought to rely on that. So that's item 4 we'd like to delete. That was Dr. Warren's statement. And number 6, we'd like to delete that. That refers to what other agencies are doing. And we learned also after the packet went out that Mendocino Transit Authority, who's mentioned here, is meeting in person in the hybrid format. So we thought we ought to just delete that reference to what other agencies are doing. And the third and final amendment we'd like is under number 7. And we'd like to change the word would to may. So it would say, given the heightened risks of the predominant variant of COVID-19 in the community, holding meetings with all members of the legislative body, staff, and the public in attendance in person in a shared indoor meeting space, strike the word would and say may pose an unnecessary and immediate risk to attendees. And that's just because we think that different people have different vulnerabilities, and that we can't put everybody in the same category. Some may not have such a risk, but other people who are, exposed to, have more vulnerable people at home or have their own risks may have more of a risk than others. And so we'd like to make that a may pose an unnecessary risk. And those are the 3 amendments we're proposing to this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt the resolution with the proposed amendments?
So moved.
Second. I will second.
Okay, I think I heard John Hashak second first. So, do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
Not seeing any, and we did not receive any prior to the meeting either.
Okay, great. Can we have a roll call?
Director Jim Brown,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Scott Ignacio,
Yes.
Director Tess Alban Smith,
Yes.
Director John Haschek,
Yes.
Tasha Osran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Judy.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I apologize, I didn't ask for the motion to adopt both the amended version and the August minutes. So can we have a motion to approve the August minutes?
I would accept, the minutes.
I will second.
Do we have any comments on this item? All right, not seeing it. Can we have a roll call on the minutes?
Director Jim Brown,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Scott Ignacio,
Yes.
Director Tess Alban Smith,
Yes.
Director John Haschek,
Yes.
Tasha Osran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Judy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to item number 6, which is public expression on non-agenda items. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the board on items that are not on today's agenda?
Doesn't look like it, and we did not receive any non-agenda comments prior to the meeting.
Okay, all right, well then that takes us to our regular calendar, and we have the resolution approving the 22-23 project lists for the California State of Good Repair Program for Mendocino Transit Authority. Who would like to lead the discussion on this?
I'll take that one. And you have my written staff report. It's a fairly routine item. These are funds that come from Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. This will be the 6th year of funding. And so annually, Mendocino Transit Authority needs to submit a project list. And as I've mentioned in here, they'd like to put those funds towards the Ukiah Transit Center project. And that was where they had originally put their funds in the beginning cycles, but that hasn't, the project hasn't moved along as quickly enough to meet the expenditure deadlines. So they had moved those funds to other projects, and now they'd like to bring that back. And it's a good time, we think, because MCOG currently in its planning work program has a project to locate a transit center site. And so they'd like to rekindle that project and put all of the funds for this new year cycle towards the Ukiah Transit Center at $149,139, and that is the amount of the revised state controller's estimate, and that is within the fund balance that we have available. So I'll just note that under action required, I had said we were waiting for something from MTA, but that was really kind of a misunderstanding. It turns out that what they were referring to was supporting documentation. The MTA board's resolution was pending after this packet went out, and there is no change to their project submit. So it would be as written in the attached proposed resolution and the attached exhibit. There's no change to that. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Are there any questions? All right, it seems like a fairly straightforward item. And we recommend approval of this resolution with the exhibit.
I'll motion to approve the recommended action.
I'll second. Haschek.
All right, thanks. I'm not seeing, do we have any public comment on this agenda item? All right, not seeing any. Can we have roll call?
Yes. Director Jim Brown,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Director Scott Ignacio,
Yes.
Director Tess Alban Smith,
Yes.
Director John Haschek,
Yes.
Tasha Alstran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to the Technical Advisory Committee's recommendations for the Local Transportation Fund, 2% Bicycle Pedestrian Program, and Loretta.
Good afternoon, board members. You have my staff report before you, and you may be familiar that every other year, typically, the MCOG board awards the LTF 2% Bike and Pedestrian funds to local projects. With rare exception, we've been pretty consistent with this. And every year during your budget year, budget allocation decisions, you award a small amount of money for this fund. So we currently have about 2 years worth of the allocations ready to award with a little bit of interest. It's around $175,000. So these are for like small bike and pedestrian projects. We put out a call to projects to our local agencies, and only one application was received by the September 7th due date. And that application was from the County Department of Transportation. So the TAC considered the county's application, which was to provide the local match for a larger HSIP grant application to do some improvements in Ukiah and Covelo. I have the application. In summary, it's to construct a bikeway or pathway and install and upgrade the pedestrian crossing with enhanced safety features along State Street in Ukiah from Laws Avenue to Beacon Lane, and then a separate project to construct a sidewalk and pathway along Crawford Road in Covelo from Bigger Lane to Foothill Boulevard. So with this category in the HSIP program, you're allowed to group similar improvements in different locations for what they call a systemic application. And Alicia Meyer from the County Department of Transportation is here to answer any questions, or she can give you a summary of the application, and then it's up for your consideration. And the TAC at their meeting reviewed the application and unanimously recommended that it be approved.
Okay, thank you. Alicia, do you want to add anything about the projects?
Sure, I could just say, like Loretta said, the ones on the south end of Ukiah. Well, first of all, so this application came out of this larger Highway Safety Improvement Program grant application that was part of TJKM's contract to develop the local road safety plan for the county and for also the incorporated cities. And so this was considered one of the high priority projects that was developed out of TJKM's local road safety plan. And so then they helped develop the applications for the HSIP application. And then there's a sizable local match, and that's all shown on the application. And so we are asking for the LTF funds to cover a portion of the local match. My understanding is that there were quite a lot of HSIP applications this year, so it'll be a little while before we find out if we were successful or not. And unfortunately, we weren't even aware of this project back at budget time last year. And so we're doing some internal calculations to figure out where the rest of the local match can come from, if we were to be awarded this project. So I'm working on that right now.
Okay, thanks. Any questions about this agenda item? Dave Spack?
Thank you, Chair Gertie. may I offer public comment, or is this not yet timely?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My compliments to the county and to MCOG in considering this item. It's great to see these investments coming forward, and I know that they typically involve sometimes a complicated mix of funding sources in order to make the match and make these things work. I do want to remind the county that there is a South Coast area. Some pedestrian projects were identified and included in the recent active transportation plan and the regional transportation plan. There was no indication whatsoever that anything in the South Coast was ever considered. I do appreciate that this is a high priority recommendation by the TJKM study, which, as far as I can tell, had no visibility into the South Coast, and particularly out in the unincorporated areas of the county. So I want to encourage future cycles do consider other parts of the county. I'm here to help and to participate if that is at all useful. But again, compliments on this particular project. I wish it the best of luck. Thank you.
Director Hashak.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering about the split. Like, I don't see where the Ukiah versus the Covelo funding is broken out. Do we know how much would go to each, or is that how you're thinking about it? Or is it just overall, we're looking at this big project?
I think we're looking at the overall one. There's a little bit more specific a funding estimate in the HSIP application that TJKM developed, but I believe they still lumped the two together. And so I guess when we get down to doing our engineer's estimate, if this is all successful and all the ducks line up properly, then we would have then I can give you a more specific breakdown. But I guess right at this moment, I don't have the specific breakdown.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
Oh, actually, I did just want to comment back to Dave that part of the local road safety plan that TJKM developed, they were looking at the entire for county DOT, they were looking at the entire unincorporated Mendocino County and looking at accident data and things like that. And so the South Coast was definitely included in their study.
Yeah, I would also, so Alicia did answer, or said some of what I was going to say, but I want to just add to that and say that yes, that was a countywide study. That plan was actually a requirement of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and that HSIP program is is entirely driven by numbers. So where there are recorded safety incidences, where there are, there's a recorded accident history, those are sort of the areas that rise to the top under this particular program. So although there may be safety issues all around the county, the ones that rose to the top the most for this plan would have been the places with the highest accident rate, and then also accident severity comes into it as well. So I guess it's a good thing for the South Coast that those locations did not rise to the top. And then I also want to say it's just really nice to see the county moving forward with those applications. To see something so quickly come out of one of these plans is really encouraging. And so hopefully that will be successful with the statewide application.
Okay, all right, thanks. Well, if there's no more questions or comments, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I will second.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Yes, Director Jim Brown,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Scott Ignacio,
Yes.
Director Tess Alban Smith,
Yes.
Director John Hashek,
Yes.
Tasha Alban Smith, oops, sorry, Tasha Allstrand, my bad, I'm sorry.
That's okay, yes.
And Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to recess as the Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency. Do we have a motion to ratify the recommendations of the Policy Advisory Committee?
I will move to ratify.
Ignacio seconds.
Okay. Can we have roll call?
Director Jim Brown,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Scott Ignacio,
Yes.
Director Tess Alden Smith,
Yes.
Director John Hashek,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, that takes us on to reports. First, they're informational. Caltrans.
Hi, yeah, I've asked Julia Peterson to join us today. She's our Clean California coordinator, and she's going to give some updates on things in Mendocino County.
Hi, everyone. Just 1 second. Sorry, you guys got to this really quick. So I know I spoke to you a couple months ago. I am still the Clean California coordinator, and we've been pretty busy. I would ask how many of you have seen some sort of Clean California activity, whether it's our maintenance folks cleaning up on the side of the road on the first and third Thursday, or one of our dump days, or some of the other notifications we've done. Hopefully you're seeing that happening now. And then we have a new education contract that will start to kick off in the spring. The other thing we have in the spring will be our Community Day of Action. And the theme is March into Spring, and we will be looking to do something in every county. So you can anticipate, we're just starting to plan that now, but we will have probably the early part of March. We're waiting for the governor to approve our proposed date, but we will have a spring community-wide cleanup and event day. So that will be, we're working on that. Updates for Mendocino. We had a very, very successful dump day in Covelo. We got nearly 5,000 cubic yards of debris. We filled up 2 possum belly trucks or trailers, plus I think 3 or 4 or 50 yards every single day, collected 264 appliances, a lot of debris out of Covelo. The line started earlier and earlier each morning until finally someone just said, I want to be first, and arrived at 2 a.m. for a 9 a.m. opening. There was a lot of demand in Covelo, and I think everyone was surprised at how much people wanted to clean up when they were offered the opportunity to do so. So it was a really good experience. We are talking to the community about ways to apply for grants to get more money. We did 6 full days there. We've never gone anywhere else more than 1 day, but Covelo was nominated to be cleaned up by more people than any other community in District 1. So they are an underserved community, and they did receive an equitable amount of cleanup. So I think they wanted us back next month, but we won't be able to do that at this time. So we did go to Gualala, speaking of the South Coast. We were there in late June, and we served 168 vehicles. Apparently Solid Waste of Willits was unprepared for how many people would arrive, and it was quite the community event. So Gualala turned out for a dump day. So we're trying to move all around District 1 and serve various communities, but with special attention per Clean California to the disadvantaged and underserved communities. So let's see, beautification projects for Clean California. You'll recall that Caltrans District 1 has 8 beautification projects. We've completed, oh, I see that I'm not even on the screen. You guys got to see my beautification project. I'll move this way, but my camera was off. I guess I don't look at myself when I'm doing this. So the Samoa Bridge murals was completed, as well as the Manila Vance Avenue parklets. So 2 of our 8 are completed. We have a public meeting for Covelo downtown improvements, and that will be an online meeting on October 19th in the evening. And we'll be going out with publicity soon. To Wednesday night, we have our Berry Summit meeting. We'll go out with publicity very soon this week for the Covelo meeting. We'll introduce what we're planning to do and get some community input on shaping that project. So the idea is to take that input, finalize our plans quickly, and get this out to bid just after the first of the year so that construction can start later in early 2023. I have some less good news about Boonville. I think the best news about Boonville is they're interested in moving on to a local grant project. But unfortunately, Boonville was one of our 8 beautification projects. And we worked with the community of Boonville to develop not 1, but 3 different project concepts. And unfortunately, their upcoming sewer and drinking water projects are going to disrupt any Clean California beautification that we could do. So they have declined to participate in this particular program. So we will not be doing a beautification project in Boonville, and we are looking now at what we'll replace that project with. I did meet, however, with the Anderson Valley Mac Recreation Committee and help them through all of what they would need for Clean California local grant. So cycle 1, local grants, we didn't have, we had very good success in District 1. Mendocino County did not get quite as many as some of the other communities got. So I want to remind you that cycle 2 is coming up. The webinars will be starting probably this month with a call for applications right around early January. And we're anticipating that applications will be due about the same cycle as last year, February 1st or early February. So now is the time to be putting your proposal and your concepts and do your scoping. We will provide unlimited technical assistance. So by some ironic thing, it's ironic. The bigger communities have more professional grant staff and therefore would get more grant dollars. So part of being equitable about this is to try to help small communities by providing unlimited staff. So I do have Preston Allen. He's my local grant coordinator and grant manager, and he will work with anyone who would like some help putting together a grant. So the local grants, just to remind you, they could be on the state highway system, but we actually don't recommend it. We recommend you put those off the highway system because Caltrans is very difficult to work with when you want to work in our right of way, and it slows things down. If you have community parks, if you've got pathways, trails, places that need beautification or cleanup, remember that Clean California is designed to beautify, reduce litter, and create jobs. So things that various communities are doing include wayfinding signs, refurbishing parks, children's playgrounds. We've got the Eel River Trail in Rio Del where they're building a walking biking trail. We've got city entryways that are getting planting and sculpture. So these are really low, they're going through Caltrans, and it is a Caltrans project, but these are really about your communities and what would you like to do to beautify your community. And it can be anything from having dump days to brand new wayfinding signs.
So Julia, if I could ask, are you seeing in other parts of California or other parts of District 1 where there may be applications from multiple agencies, but for a single application? For example, I was thinking about here in Mendocino County, we have a number of groups. I think the Mendocino Land Trust may head it up in Mendocino County in terms of like the river and beach cleanup program with the Coastal Conservancy. But I have a feeling that they could probably really ramp that up, instead of being a twice-a-year event, taking on other more properties and in more locations, and perhaps even partnering with the cities and the county, taking on more properties. So is that something that could be submitted, but sort of, I guess, in concert with multiple agencies?
So Clean California is not designed to supplant existing programs. We don't want to replace something that's happening. So if you were to propose to fund something that's already happening, it would not qualify. You would score very, very poorly if you were qualified at all. But to say we're going to take an existing program that works and we're going to triple the size of it to new locations, yeah, that's absolutely eligible.
Yeah, I was trying to think of entities that are already doing things that could be ramped up, and people who have sort of a proven track record.
Yep, we're definitely have a number of grants. Many of the successful grants have multiple projects. So I think 8 is the highest number. The Humboldt Bay Harbor District partnered with Redwood Community Action Agency. Partnerships are very common in the successful grant applications, and they're improving 8 different locations within the Manila Peninsula. And that includes, there's a rusty old water tower that they wanted to remove it, but when they got the bid for $500,000, they decided a mural would be more economical. So it will still be a large water tower, but it will look nice soon. And so there are lots of things you can consider, but partnering is definitely ramping up existing programs. Some of the scoring will involve the probability that you can be successful with this project in a short time frame. So scaling up an existing program is likely to score high as long as you tell that story.
Then the other question I had was, in particular, I think I've noticed it mostly on the 101 corridor in Mendocino County, and I've seen where it looks like Caltrans has maybe stepped up their historic levels of clearing the brush, mowing it down, and just limbing up trees along the highway. And near Ukiah, I've noticed that they've put in some new substantial fencing along the highway, and again, limbing up the trees. So where there may or may not have been people camping very, kind of in that Caltrans right of way or nearby, maybe on private property. So it's just sort of, I would say it's sort of a beautification program. Are there other projects like that? You said you were looking to, you had the Boonville project, that one can't take place right now, but you're looking for another project in Mendocino County. Are there other projects that are underway that could be scaled up, or do you need to create a brand new project someplace in Mendocino County that to redirect the resources that were going to go into the Boonville project?
Both. So District 1 does need to produce 8 projects. So I will need to find a project somewhere within District 1 to count as 8, because that's how Sacramento counts. We need 8. Some of the money could be redirected to enhance something else, and we could even have more than 8. The time frame, though, will be something that can be done really, really fast. So probably the best, most likely scenario is that we find something that I can have our maintenance forces do. So the clearing you're talking about, it wasn't a Clean California project. I'm not clear whether that was, one of our fire enhancement or fire protection type of programs, or if that was just about our landscape crew got to that area and was cleaning up under. I don't know why. I don't know what project cleaned up the area you're talking about, but safety projects in terms of preventing people experiencing hopelessness from, say, building fires under bridges, you can count, those could count. Unfortunately, I don't think we have time to get anything on the state right of way to repurpose that funding. It really needs to get turned around very, very quickly. It could be through a co-op agreement with any one of the agencies that are here today, or it could be through a maintenance force, but it's going to have to be something we can get the ball rolling really fast.
Okay, thank you. Director Hashak, then Director Connie.
What's all this pointing at the air?
I can't hear you. It's just me.
Yeah. Okay. Just talking to myself.
I wouldn't do that.
No, I just wanted to thank Julia and for the incredible effort in Covelo for those 6 dump days. It was really brought the community together. I thought it was complicated, as you know, to get all the pieces together. But, the county working with Caltrans, working with Solid Waste of Willits, and then the tribe and the MAC up there. just a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and it really came together. I think that the people were still very happy with the outcome, even though they had to sit in line for hours, but it was incredible. When I was up there, the people were all in good moods, even after sitting all that time. And it was really, I think it did a lot for the community. So really, thank you very much. And as far as a future program, I was just talking about a wayfinding signs in Willits for the museum and some of the skunk train and all the entities, the art center. And so I think that we could get that application to you very, very shortly here.
I would suggest having someone attend the webinars. I'm anticipating that there will be some adjustments to the grants. So as to what is acceptable in the scoring, because we want to have learned from the first round. So find whoever is your best person to work on attending the webinars and work with Preston. Just email me and I'll put you in contact with Preston if you don't have his contact already.
Okay, and then I'll let Greta talk about, I think, what I think is the next issue.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for mentioning that about wayfinding signs for Willits, John. That's definitely something that's been on our list to do for many moons. So that would be fantastic. Julia, I think an issue, and I'm sure this is what John is guessing I'm going to discuss, an issue that all of our districts face is illegal dump sites, whether it's cul-de-sacs or sides of the roads or back roads. Is there a potential that the cycle 2 could cover those sorts of incidences before the dump days?
Oh yeah. So Caltrans has the same problem. People who cannot afford the dump or choose not to go to the dump donate to the state on wide spots in the road everywhere, the same as they do to you. The illegal dumping is rampant. And we know just from going, Supervisor Hashak attended at Covelo, and when you go to one of the dump days, you realize that some of the people here, they tell you their stories and they really cannot afford the dump fees. And so I think that the dump days really are about equity and people having a good choice. And you can use the cycle 2 money for dump days if you wanted to say, if you're in Willits, is that correct?
Yes, but I guess more to the point would be using any of the cycle 2 funding to actually perform the cleanups on these, back areas that have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so for instance,
you can both do dump days and cleanups.
Okay, terrific.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
If at all, I don't want to encourage, but I would like to at least mention that many communities are able to hire organizations that hire people experiencing homelessness or with barriers to jobs to do that cleanup. So we have in Fortuna, we have that, some in Eureka. There's a couple other places where they're able to partner with one of the local, what do they call it? It's a low barrier jobs to do the cleanup. And it is nice to create jobs and get things cleaned up. But the cleanup can definitely be funded, both people to do the cleanup or to organize neighborhood cleanups and to pay the dump fees.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, Dave Spack.
Julia, thank you for the update. And I do want to again mention that the cleanup in Wallala was super popular and unfortunately was not effective due to a contractor miscalculation. So we're hoping to attract your attention again and can probably mobilize a relatively rapid turnaround either in the wayfinding area, paths, or further cleanup. So if you could provide your email address in the chat, I will reach out to you.
Absolutely. I'm concerned when you say it wasn't effective. I'm not aware of a problem in Wallala.
It was undersized. There was excess demand.
Yes, we're aware that solid waste of Willits, despite that they were a little bit overwhelmed.
That's all I was mentioning.
Yes.
Essentially echoing your report.
Yes. Okay. Perfect.
So let's do it again better.
Yeah, we're all trying to learn. that was Solid Waste of Willits. And they did not believe us when we told them how many people. And so when we did Covelo and we said, we want to help you, we want to send our Caltrans people with cones and signs and show you how to organize this, they were all ears. And as John knows, they were we definitely were able to help them. They thought, oh, we got it. We don't need your help. We know how to do this. And so we didn't provide as much help as it turned out they needed.
Well, I was happy to be a part of your continuing learning experience since we're all learning from this together. So come back and visit. Thank you.
And I'm trying to put my name in the chat. I'll do that once we're done talking.
Thank you.
So anything else, any other opportunities? If there is a community cleanup, I forget who was in Willits. If there is a community cleanup that you wanted to do, oh, that was Greta, right? We could actually help sponsor a community cleanup at this time if you had something you wanted to organize with volunteers. So I can provide, trash cans or trash litter bags and pickers. If the scale of the waste is more of you need 2 dumpsters, we may be able to provide something like that. So you can reach out if you have a community that you want to do that kind of a cleanup. So one of the things that happens when people become accustomed to living with trash, they don't notice a little bit more. As things get cleaned up, we hope that first, person doesn't dump because it would stand out. It's not as difficult to add 2 more tires to a huge pile as it is to put the first 2 tires out. So, any other questions or feedback?
Just one final one that I have is in your project up in Eureka, I think it's near the bridge project, where there was a little parklet created where,
oh yeah,
and I saw it in a different presentation. And a question I have is, if there was I believe that was probably a Caltrans piece of property or a publicly owned property. If there was publicly owned property that could be improved through a parklet, maybe there's the idea of, maybe there's the opportunity to have even electric car chargers there with kind of an improved parking area. Is that something that could be done not on the fly, but planned ahead? Could at least some of the infrastructure for the landscaping and whatnot be put in by the Clean California, and then maybe the EV chargers are installed later as a phase 2 from some other funding source?
So Dan, everyone else, I didn't actually pay him to say that. Wednesday night, we have a public meeting for one of the other beautification projects at the Berry Vista Summit, or Berry Summit Vista Point. So that's between Eureka and Willow Creek on Highway 299. There's a big, it's not a turnout, it's really a parking lot that belongs to Caltrans. And when you go up and have a look, it's ringed with toilet paper. And that's what makes you realize that the waste on the ground is not necessarily all belonging to dogs. And it's just a very popular place, and there's really nothing there in terms of amenities. And so if you're interested in something like that, you might consider attending. You'll be able to see we're actually installing vault toilets. We're doing a solar EV charger, picnic benches, very similar to those at the Vance Parklet where you saw where we're asking if the community wants them painted, some planters, dog waste station, bike rack, and trash cans. So really turning it from just a parking lot where people pull over and you're on your own into we aren't allowed by state requirements to make a full-on rest area, but it'll look a lot like one.
So you referenced a Wednesday meeting. Could that link be in the chat?
Yes, I'll send you a link to that as well. It's Wednesday night. It's a virtual meeting for public engagement, and we'll be showing some draft plans and different options. And we'll have a survey asking people what they want. I would say that project is a little big for us to be able to do in Mendocino, but if there was a turnout or something more like the Vance Avenue Parklet that is already owned by Caltrans, so we have no right-of-way acquisition, the Vance Parklet project was turned around really quickly. And in that case, for those, if you wanted, I could pull up some pictures really quick if you wanted to see them, but I will say that what it was the old highway when the highway got realigned. So it was a nice wide parking area. People were dumping RVs, trash piles, all sorts of stuff. What we did is went in, we restricted the parking to close to the street so that people weren't living there, literally. Dug up some of the pavement and installed a big planter box with native plants, picnic tables. It's all ADA accessible with a bike rack and dog waste station. And we did that with our maintenance forces. So it was really quick, really economical. And if there was a spot in Mendocino that would be suitable, that's a project that we might be able to get completed by the end of June. So I would definitely welcome someone letting me know if you know of a place where we might want to do that.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any other questions or comments on the Caltrans Clean California program?
I just want to point out, Julia had mentioned the community days that they're planning for in March, and they're looking for feedback. So there is a flyer in the info packet for this meeting with the link to that survey.
Thank you. Then that's open for about another week or so. I think it closes on, I want to say it's the 10th, but it might be sooner. So we're doing a whirlwind event. I will, after I'm done, and it sounds like I am done, I'll put the link to the public meeting as well as my email. Feel free to reach me. I know I've heard from quite a few of you, so you do know how to reach me, and the rest of you are more than welcome to reach out anytime you see an opportunity or have an idea. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share this update.
Okay, we
Thank
appreciate
you, Julia.
I appreciate that. Tasha, was there anything else from Caltrans?
I just wanted to point out that there is a Caltrans milestone report that went out. I hadn't prepared anything specific today, but certainly if there are questions about projects, let me know and I can follow up either through email or at a future board meeting. Thanks.
Okay, not seeing any questions right now. All right, that would take us to Mendocino Transit Authority. Do we have any updates from MTA?
So Jacob is actually out of the office today. So he wanted me to just pass on the message that he is about to advertise the RFP to update their transit development plan. That's all I've got.
Okay, right, thanks. Do we have any updates for the Great Redwood Trail?
Yeah, Chair Jurdy, we had a meeting on September 19th, and at that meeting, we had a presentation from the Alta leadership team, which is doing the master plan and community engagement program for the Great Redwood Trail. I sent it to Nafili. Were you able to upload it or anything? I just wanted to share it if people wanted to see it. So maybe I could email it to you, or you could email it out. But I think it's worth looking at, and their timeline, which is really they're going to start doing the community engagement at the beginning of the year for about 6 months. And then the final product is expected to be done in November of 2023. So anyway, it's exciting, and there's certainly a lot of issues to work through, but they're committed to really reaching out to the community, so, to figure out how to solve as many of the problems as possible.
Okay, thanks, Director Hashak, for the update. Do we have any other comments or questions about the Great Redwood Trail? All right, well, then that takes us over to MCOG summary of meetings.
Right, you have the report in the packet. I don't have anything particularly to highlight, but happy to answer any questions. Okay, well, thanks for the update. Not seeing any questions right now.
All right, well then that would take us, what, I think to the planning meetings.
Can I backtrack one step, Chairman
Okay.
Judy? Let's see, we didn't have anything down for administrative staff, but I had a miscellaneous that we've received the draft performance audit reports. That's the triennial performance audits for MCOG and Mendocino Transit Authority. And they're both very good. And you can expect to receive a presentation at our next meeting on November 7th from the consultant Moore and Associates. And MCOG staff has provided our comments on the draft. And I think MTA is doing that too. And so we're almost finished with this.
Okay, well, thanks. Okay, well then maybe now we're on to planning.
Oh, thank you. I just have one brief staff report in your packet. I reported last time about the upcoming meetings on the Mobility Solutions Grant. So those meetings were held in August in each of the 5 rural communities that we're studying. Several of you attended that, so we appreciate that. The consultant is currently taking that input received during those community listening sessions and analyzing it and developing a follow-up survey that will soon be going out to those 5 communities within the next 1 to 2 weeks, I believe. And there will be a second round of mailers sent to each household in those 5 communities advertising the survey. So the second round of public engagement will be virtual. And then what next? And then once the input is received and analyzed further, the consultant will be developing some potential solutions that we will be looking at. And the timeline for the entire project runs through next summer, with the recommendations eventually being presented to the MCOG board. We anticipate next August with the final report. So we're hopeful that this project will result in some implementable solutions for these rural communities. And we look forward to your input, and thank you again for attending this session. That's all I have on that. And if there are no questions, I have one miscellaneous item.
Director Hashak?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any update that either you, Loretta, or James could give about the multi-purpose trail in Covelo.
Oh yeah, I'll let James and Nafili report on that.
So the biggest update. The biggest update is that we have entered into a contract with Ghirardelli for the construction management on that project. That was delayed. We had to advertise for that contract twice due to a lack of proposals the first time, but we've had our kickoff with them and moving forward. And so now now that we've got that construction management in place, we'll be advertising. Our goal is to be prepared, have everything completed for construction, advertisement of the construction by the end of this week.
Thank you. Director Connie?
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the community listening sessions and wanted to let Loretta know that I heard from a couple of residents from both Brook Trails and Willits. They greatly appreciated the opportunity to be heard, and they feel hopeful that there will be some creative solutions to transportation issues between Willits and Brook Trails for those who don't have their own vehicle access. So thank you for being there and letting those folks have an opportunity to weigh in.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, not seeing any other questions or comments, then I guess we'll go on to just MCOG director reports. Any MCOG board members with any report? Oh, I'm sorry, Laura, you had a miscellaneous item. Go ahead.
Right, just one brief item. We have an RFP currently out for a feasibility study and location analysis for MTA's new Ukiah Transit Center, kind of a location study. So proposals are due for that project in about 2 weeks on October 14th. This is not a grant-funded study. This is a study that's funded through the work program, and the total consultant budget is $150,000. So we'll be reporting to you as that project goes along. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Director Hashak.
Yeah, just a follow-up question for the construction management that's going to be completed this week. So what does that mean for actual construction on the project?
So what we're aiming to complete by the end of this week is to have all of the documents ready to advertise the for bids for the actual construction contract. So then, as far as the timeline, I believe that we will do about a 4-week advertisement, and then allowing a little bit of time to do whatever paperwork is necessary. We expect to have a contract awarded, and I'll ask James to correct me if I get this wrong, but by mid-November approximately.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. There's going to be about probably 2 weeks while the winning contractor gets their insurance bonds and all that to us. That has to be done prior to the notice to proceed before they can do mobilization. This is all under the assumption, though, that the bids come in within our budget. And so we have a little bit of a backup plan for that, I think, in terms of holding on to the bids and then going to Caltrans to find additional funding depending on where they come in, I guess. But yeah, so hopefully there'll be some movement by Thanksgiving in terms of actual movement of the contractors.
But then actual construction won't happen until next construction season?
So there are a couple items, one in particular that we hope to have done prior to March 14th. March 15th through sometime in the summer or early summer is the bird nesting season. And so if we can get any of the clearing and grubbing of shrubs and small trees and whatnot out before that March 14th or March 15th deadline, then we don't have to worry about getting a biologist and arborist out there to look for nests and all this stuff. That's not to say that a bird can't come in afterwards and sit down in the middle of the field where we're trying to go and put a nest. But this is just going to hopefully lessen any chance for delays for that reason. There's one other item that we would like to do prior to everything coming together, but that's the work in the creek for potholing for the sewer line. However, there are some permit timeframes that we have to work within. And so depending on the weather, we can get an extension to do the work in the creek. But aside from this project, my hope is that we don't get that extension because that means there's no rain and we need rain. So, that one's a little bit of a catch-22. I want to get it done sooner, but I'd like rain.
Okay, thank you. I know Director Brown. I know that Director Brown's got another appointment. So under matters from board members, I just wanted to mention something. At last month's meeting, Janet went through some state grants that were 2 different ones that were awarded in Mendocino County for electric EV chargers. And while Director Brown is still here before he has this other appointment, I just wanted to float an idea, which is one thing I've noticed on the county side is that we don't have a lot of expertise in-house in county general services to, do things like installing EV chargers. And with the city of Ukiah having its own utility entity, it has sort of a unique staff that has expertise that really none of the county and the other cities just don't have. And just an idea to float with Director Brown and the city of Ukiah would be to consider looking at their electric utility company that they have and the staff resources they have as sort of as perhaps an enterprise for them to take on countywide would be to work with the other cities in the county to help them install EV chargers in their other jurisdictions. It can almost be potentially a revenue stream for them, possibly beyond their city limits. So just something to think about, because that's, I think, a hurdle that I see is just the time it's going to take to get the county and probably other agencies to install EV chargers, because they don't have that. They're going to rely on consultants and and outside vendors to do, I think, work that could be done probably pretty easily by City of Ukiah Utility.
Yeah, I've got no problem pursuing that request and seeing what our capacity is and what the interest is. I really appreciated you saying it might be a little bit of a revenue stream for Ukiah. Whenever some money is offered up, it seems like people always pay up and pay a little more attention when there's money attached. So yeah, I'll round that up the flagpole and get back to everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other director reports? Director Connie.
Well, I just wanted to share with the group that the area of Willits held a successful illegal dump site cleanup on September 10th. We had about 30 volunteers. Supervisor Mulhern and I hosted, and our volunteers managed to pull out 6,000 pounds of garbage from Dogwood Terrace in Brook Trails, which is an out-of-the-way cul-de-sac that has just been used as a dump site for everything from construction debris to old stoves to, I mean, you name it. We didn't get to finish because there was a lot of big material that we couldn't get into the few trailers that volunteers brought. We had a follow-up day that was scheduled for this past Saturday, had to cancel because we didn't have enough trailers. They all kind of fell through at the last minute. So we're hoping to reschedule it for October 22nd. It has been very successful. The community members who participated felt great about doing it. We had a local landscaper show up with a small bobcat for lifting some of the heavier equipment. And so I would encourage any of you in your districts who have similar problems, and I know we all have this problem, volunteers are willing to do it. You know, if the county doesn't have the resources to attack these sites, then people in our community are tired of looking at this stuff and they're ready to dive in. So anyway, it was a good thing. And John has helped get some support from local agencies like CHP and sheriffs and Brook Trails Fire to get us some letters of support to close those cul-de-sacs after the cleanup is done. And that will go before the Board of Supervisors in October 16th. So we're hopeful that this is going to be cleaned up and then closed off and won't keep happening. And our local cycling group will be able to spearhead some trail building off the top of that cul-de-sac for the use of pedestrians and cyclists. Good news for Willits and Brook Trails.
Thank you. Any other director reports?
Yeah, I'll just add, Chair Jurdy, that it's October 18th is the public hearing to close off Dogwood Terrace and Dogwood Lane. So just make sure, and it's supposed to be around 9 o'clock in the morning, first thing.
Okay. Any updates from CalCog, our state association?
I took some notes at that meeting, Mr. Chair, and if Director Alban Smith doesn't have any comments first. She was at that meeting also. All right, well, I'll just go ahead.
Sorry, Janet, it looked like Director Alban Smith was trying to comment, but I think was maybe on mute.
Oh, okay. I'll let her go first.
There we go.
There we go.
I was just going to say that I went to all but one of the mobility solutions presentations, and they were all extremely different from each other. And I really appreciated how well it was handled, how most people were well behaved, and but the facilitators did a good job when everybody just seemed stonewalling. All of a sudden, you know, they elicited responses, and it was great.
Okay, Janet, did you want to give us a quick update?
Sure. There was a CalCog board meeting on September 23rd, and I got online with that. There were about 50 participants, or a lot of members. And one thing was they launched the 5th Carl program, and that's the CalCog Regional Leadership Academy, I think it's called. And our own Lexi Pedrati here on staff is in that cohort this year. So they will graduate in May, and maybe she can tell us about that later. So that was kind of exciting. They spent a lot of time, well, not a lot, but they spent some time talking about legislation, which is usual. But at that time, the bills were on the governor's desk to be either signed or vetoed, so there wasn't much resolution on many of those. So they went over a few. There was a discussion about the Brown Act, and as you know, we've been following that very closely for open meetings law to see what's coming as far as, you know, whether we'll be able to attend Zoom meetings anymore, or to what extent and how. So they talked about that. There was a lot of talk about climate policy and noting some rules about greenhouse gas and DMT. And this is an interesting fact I picked up. They were saying that the transportation sector has not reduced greenhouse gas emissions as much as clean energy. And I think what they meant by that was, you know, stationary facilities that produce renewable energy. So transportation wasn't doing as well, and reductions, and we may see more targets coming down in the future. They talked about how to address the climate rules and how to kind of arrive at some consensus or voting on CalCog policy in that regard. And just my takeaway was that there are different ways to meet the state rules, and depending on where we live, and one size does not fit all. And so I think we've seen that, and that's pretty much what the CalCog membership was agreeing about. So they're still working on that. Let's see, and the last couple items, you know, the annual regional leadership forum, the conference that they have, has been postponed several times because of the COVID pandemic. And excuse me, this in March, they plan to come back and meet in person and have that in Riverside, as they had planned to do way back in 2020. So that'll be March 6th through the 8th, 2023 at Riverside. They'd like to get more people to that. They're shooting for more like 300 people instead of maybe the 150 or so that we typically have. And so they were suggesting inviting another board member if you go to that. So we do have some travel funds, so if you're interested in going, let us know. And final comment, the next meeting of the CalCog board will be in person. So they'll meet November 29th in San Jose. And that was my short report on it.
Right, and I would just tag on to that, the first part when you were talking about the Brown Act rules. Those are effective in January. I think everybody knows this already, but just in case you didn't know. And it's, I personally would love to see us continue hybrid. It's a bit far for us, you know, to go to these meetings, and then, you know, to go to CalCog's meeting all the way in San Jose is kind of what? Pretty far.
So just very briefly on those numbers and carbon reduction in the in California from the energy sector versus transportation. Just an example of that would be PG&E in 2010. Their the carbon load in their power portfolio, even though they have Mount Diablo nuclear power plant, which is basically carbon free, and even though they've got lots of large hydro, they still rely heavily and have always relied heavily on natural gas generators. So so their emissions in 2010, just 12 years ago, compared to Sonoma Clean Power in 2022, there's a 79% reduction or 71% reduction in carbon emissions from Sonoma Clean Power today versus PG&E in 2010. So that's there. I think you kind of see through that anecdote that there's probably no way that the transportation sector in that time period would have reduced its carbon emissions as fast as the electric grid, especially with the onset of entities like Sonoma Clean Power, community choice aggregates, which have honestly moved a lot faster than the public investor-owned utilities in decarbonizing their power sources. So, okay, well, I think with that, I think we're adjourned at 2:40. See you guys next month.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.